Secret friends, unite!
Welcome to the Secret Friends Unite podcast. This is your guide to the geek side. I'm your host, Todd Oxtra, and this is a special edition. This is a solo, quick check-in before E3. This will be my predictions, my wants, and what I expect, what I think needs to happen for the big three, and maybe throw in one third party as well. I will have also we'll have a dedicated podcast actually for to react to all the announcements of E3, and that will happen probably in a week or two. So, without further ado, this is really my take on what I want, what I think needs to happen, rather than what I think will happen. So this is just a couple of takes on the big three, and I might throw in a third party as well. So let's start. I own a PlayStation 4 Pro. I own a Switch. I own a gaming PC. So basically that covers all the bases because Microsoft Xbox essentially has all of their games on PC as well, which is great. So I don't have to own an Xbox. I can get all of my Xbox and PC gaming all in one, which is great. So at least I can talk intelligently on all three systems. We also own a 3DS as well, but quite honestly, I don't really play it. So we'll start from the top. We will start with Microsoft because I think they have the opportunity to do some really cool things because, quite honestly, they're in the most dangerous position because at this point, they don't have a lot in their catalog ready to launch on exclusives, especially new exclusives. They were in a unique position at the beginning of this generation with a lot of new IP, but none of them really stuck. Rise, we had Sunset Overdrive, games like that. So we haven't seen a lot that has really drove sales. Gears happened, Halo happened. I'd say the Forza brand is probably the strongest right now on Microsoft. I'd say Sea of Thieves is a bright spot for them, and I think that game's going to continue to grow, which is great. And they have State of Decay 2, which I don't know if it's going to bring in a lot of fans, but I think it's a type of game that you don't find on the other consoles. So I think that what they've done best this generation is introduce great services with their back catalog services and the Game Pass. So I think that's a great foundation for maybe the future. But with their current state, at this point, I'm hoping, and what I think they need to do, is they have had to secure very strong third-party and second-party development support to bring games that will be exclusively published on Microsoft. I don't think it's enough just to have a Microsoft marketing deal anymore. I don't think it's enough to have a limited time exclusive like a Tomb Raider, because I think that burns people the wrong way. I think they need games you can only get on either a PC or on the Xbox console. So I don't think you exclusively have people that will own a PC that don't own an Xbox like I do. I think you're going to have people that buy Xboxes, and the people that own PC, they're just lucky enough to have a PC that can play those games. So I think that's what we really need to do. I would love to see Playtonic maybe brought on to make a new Banjo game. I think it would be really cool to go out in different directions, maybe see if they can find a partnership with a really cool open world RPG that's exclusively theirs, maybe with Square Enix or Bethesda, or even like the studio that did New Vegas. There's a lot of studios out there that I think could bring something to the table. Even Activision could partner with them if they really wanted to. It's not normally their position because they want to go after everybody, but I think that's really what Microsoft needs to do. I think they can't really talk about backwards compatibility anymore because they've really already said all of that. I think they could make Game Pass and Xbox Live Gold into really one attractive package for $60 all in. That would be fantastic, a great deal. Or maybe layer in EA All Access as well. I think they could do that, but that's not really going to move the dial. And I don't think more hardware is going to help them either at this point. So, although I could see them add a microphone into their controller so they could have voice control, kind of like with Kinect, but not needing the camera and everything. So that's really all I can see Microsoft doing. I just don't know what they've got in their back pocket, but maybe they'll surprise us, but I think really they have to point to what is coming down the road, not just the next 6 months, that's going to make you want to have an Xbox console, because in about 2 or 3 years we will get a new console from Xbox, whether they like it or not. That's what's going to happen. So then we go on to Sony, or we'll go to Nintendo actually next. Nintendo, you know what? They're going to be successful, and they're going to probably please all their hardcore fans this fall because they're going to have Pokemon. They're going to have Yoshi. They're going to have Smash. So those 3 games alone, and Fire Emblem 2 in the chamber. I think there's enough games there, and also they've got Captain Toad. So they've got enough games that'll keep their hardcore fans very, very happy, and I'm sure they can bring out some more ports and things like that to the Switch that will really still make their hardcore fans really happy. Animal Crossing is always available to bring out as a new release. Pikmin, potentially. We know Metroid Prime 4 is probably farther out as well. So they've got enough games that they could probably not announce anything really new and surprising that would last them into 2019. But that's not me. I'm the Nintendo guy that likes a few properties of theirs, and the rest they don't speak to me. And maybe I'm the grumpy old guy, but Smash, Kart, Splatoon, ARMS, 1-2 Switch, the majority of those games do not speak to me at all. I really like more grand cinematic action adventure, open world RPG, Western style RPG games. That's really my bread and butter. I also like platformers and things like that. So Nintendo does deliver for me platformers, Zelda, Metroid. Those are my 3 hardcore brands that I like. And every once in a while I like a Yoshi, I like a Kirby. Splatoon, I like it enough, but it doesn't do much for me beyond that. So this is what I hope Nintendo does do. I mean, I know they're going to talk about their online stuff, but unless they actually offer voice chat on the Switch itself proper, or bring in a Discord app or something like that to use, quite honestly, that just seems like it's going to be a problematic thing for a lot of people. And also maybe bring out a headset solution from Nintendo or one of their partners. I know some of the brands are going to have headset solutions. I think Astro has one where they have basically a ability to get in-game audio and chat through the headset, which is great because that's what everybody else does, because you want to hear your game along with your friends. So, but I think that'll happen regardless. I think someone will come up with a good solution. From a hardware solution perspective, I don't think we're going to see a change in the Switch itself, but what I hope they do, what I want them to do, is address the fact that the Joy-Cons, while they have some really cool innovations, I think that the actual Joy-Cons from a analog stick, buttons, and inputs aren't at the level of a Pro controller, which is a superior analog sticks, superior buttons, everything. It's so much better. So I've been saying this, and I don't know if it's been copyrighted or anything. Pro cons. So basically, you take the Joy-Cons, the same core functionality, everything, nothing changes, but you basically make it the same type of ergonomics as the Pro controller. You can shrink down a little bit, but have real analog sticks, have a real D-pad, have real triggers and bumpers that are full size, and do that. And they don't supplant, the 2-player option that you get with the Joy-Cons that come with the Switch, but these are additive, which I think is perfectly fine because they love to bring out more Joy-Cons that, quite honestly, are just different colored. So I think adding more functionality and more options with those Joy-Cons would be fantastic. And they could go down the road with the same thought as basically making them look like NES controllers, GameCube, Super NES, even Wii if they want to do that. They could do a lot of those things with it, but I think they really need to address the fact that, and I've had problems with the Joy-Cons with even a year. I've had 2 issues with them hardware-wise, so I don't really like the Joy-Cons from a practicality perspective, long-term gameplay, but I think they do bring some cool things to the table, but I'd like to see them improve. So that's what I want from them from a hardware perspective. Maybe even a travel dock, that's cheaper. I think those could come as well. But from Nintendo, what I really want is I want Nintendo to really extend themselves in genres they haven't. They've played around a little bit in the past with some, but they haven't gone far enough. They have a game called Eternal Darkness on the GameCube. Has never been revisited. It's mature, had some really cool themes. It's cinematic and adventure, plays with some unique game play perspectives with sanity effects. Really cool game, very lauded. The game maker who made that wasn't Nintendo specifically. They went to Dennis Dyack and had him make it with, I believe it was Crystal Dynamics, I think. No, I can't remember the name of the company, but there was a company that did that with him. And he's wanted to make a sequel. So go for him. It's not going to take any more of your resources, Nintendo. Just fund him. Bring that game in and extend the brand beyond just family friendly, things like that, because they're already making Bayonetta, which is pretty much cheesecake, swearing, vulgar. So it's not like they don't do that. And they publish that game. So it's essentially a Nintendo game. So I think revisiting Eternal Darkness with a sequel would be fantastic. Um, I've also talked about what if Nintendo made a Western RPG style game with Obsidian maybe, and they could hire them to make it, and maybe even use a current property or make their own. Why not? Establish some new characters and some new IP, because it's really worked well for them with Splatoon. People love that. The fact that there's actually a lot of female characters now that are headlining a game, I think is really unique for Nintendo. They haven't done that in the past. So I would love to see them try that. A game that worked on the 3DS, that didn't work very well on the 3DS, but I think has an opportunity to be revisited from a concept is Metroid Federation Force. Don't call it Metroid, do whatever, but basically a cooperative campaign game with 2 to 4 players together, working together cooperatively in a PvE type experience where you're taking on campaign, bosses, and things like that. You could add a multiplayer aspect of it, like a horde mode or something down the road, and you can even probably bring in another team to take you on. But really, Nintendo has lacked a lot of cooperative games. It's always competitive. Smash and Splatoon, you're always going against each other rather than going together for a common theme. And I think that would be really cool. I think I'd like to see more of that, because when you get together on a couch when you play Nintendo games, you're usually playing against each other. I'd like to see more games together. So that's another aspect. And lastly, this is kind of like Todd's idea. Take it with what you will. I love if they're going to do a 2D Mario game on the Switch, which I'm assuming they will, trying some things. One of my favorite genres, and it's worked really well, and I think there's an appetite for more of it, is Metroidvania. So it's Metroid, Castlevania. It's that aspect of basically it's an adventure game where it's 2D typically, and you go through the games. It seems linear at first, but then you realize there's secrets, and you get powers further on in the game that allow you to go back and take on certain enemies or get to certain areas later. And you basically, it's almost like an RPG where you gain new abilities and things like that. You get more strength. I think we need a Mariovania or a Mario Troid, whatever you want to call it. I think it'd be fantastic, and you could use Mario's power-ups. It's kind of like he could get those throughout the game, but he would have access to them as he got those, and I think it'd be really cool. And then you could do other things. You could, play it, maybe even have a co-op mode, which would be fantastic, and maybe combining your abilities together, kind of like a Kirby. You could maybe either be with the minions, could be Mario minions, or sorry, not minions, Mario versus like all of the bad guy minions. Maybe you could control them and use them, kind of like in Odyssey. So you could take the Odyssey format and just say take control of these characters, make it a full 2D game. So I think there's a lot of things you could do with this. It doesn't have to be Mariovania. It could be another character in that concept. So I think that'd be very cool too. Lastly, I think it's now time to stop putting things on the 3DS. That game system has a huge catalog. So if people still want to buy the 3DS for years, guess what? There's like 500 games. So I don't think people buy the new games that come to the 3DS these days. They're buying all the heritage titles. So I don't think it's worth that. But I think it'd be really cool if you brought some of the 3DS games, up-res them or whatever, and brought them to the Switch, because I think that works really well. I think you could bring a link to a link between worlds and some of the cool games. Even Kid Icarus, that's a game I wanted. I think that would work really well as well in the Switch. Most of those assets are actually higher res than they are in the 3DS, and they're res down. So I would love to see that. So I think these are some ideas that Nintendo can go after some really cool things, and maybe go after a new audience that maybe doesn't stick with them because they don't love Mario, they don't love Zelda, but I love the idea of a handheld that can do some really cool things. So that's my thoughts on Nintendo. EA is going to be my one third party. What I would love to see them do, and even if they wanted to, they could partner with Nintendo to bring arcade sports back. They have not done arcade sports since the Street series. They did NBA and NFL Street. Maybe they could even purchase the NBA Jam license, the NFL Blitz license. I don't know. Or they've got both NBA and NFL license anyways. But the assets that make the Blitz and the Jam games cool, bring them through. But I think they need that, and I think that's the perfect partnership with Nintendo that could really work well. They could use the Nintendo characters in those games, Arcadia already, and they could even expand it and use other games like NHL, things like that. I don't think the NHL license, but I think that would be really cool. A great partnership with, for people like me who don't like sports simulations, do something fun that's fun to play with everybody and doesn't take an intimate knowledge of the game. I think that's perfect for them because they've struggled beyond the NFL license. They've struggled with NBA, and I think this is the perfect way to go after because there really is only NBA Playgrounds, which is so-so. So I think EA could do that. It'd be phenomenal. So that's my thoughts on EA as a third party, what they could bring new that would be really cool, and I think would be really compelling to them and really show that they are supporting Switch. But those games could also come to the other platforms. Lastly, Sony. Sony is really in a non-lose situation. I mean, they could walk away from E3 without a lot of buzz, but that doesn't mean they're going to lose because after E3, they've already got Spider-Man coming, so they've got some new titles that are coming out. So, and they've got exclusive deals with Red Dead Redemption 2. So. And Destiny, so they're okay, but and we know some things that already got dated for the next year. We know the big titles that are coming, so they've got a lot of exclusives coming that are going to be fantastic and that are going to come out in 2018, 2019, probably 2020. But I think where they are losing people is in their core offerings from services, their backwards compatibility. Just even some of the bare functions of the PSN network with changing your names and things like that. I think that's where they can double down and really make PlayStation a much better experience from the online portion, the store, the interactivity. I think those could all be improved, so that'd be a great thing. So one of the things I think they have to do is fix their backwards compatibility standpoint. PS Now is a cool service, but it's still online only streaming, which is not great for everybody. So but for those who could take part of it, I still think it's too expensive. I think it's $20 a month, and they just had a deal for it's 10. I think it needs to be probably less than $100 a year. Get it down to $10 a month, or maybe $60 a year, something like that. I think would be perfect to get people into it because you don't own those games; they're streaming. They changed the catalog out, but that's the only way you can really play their backwards compatible games. So I think they need to do that. The other thing they've done is done PS4, they've called them PS Classics, and basically they add some graphics, they make them backwards compatible. Now we're seeing PS2 games that are being brought forward, where they add some up-resing and things like that, which I think are fine, but PS1 games are not readily available on PlayStation 4. So there's a couple of ways they can go after this. One way they can do it is they could do the classics like Nintendo has, which would be fairly easy to do, but they could one-up it. They can make a PS1 classic, come with all the controllers as a basic DualShock, and it has games baked in, probably 20 games that are like Sony hardcore. But then it's also looped into the PlayStation Store. Nintendo doesn't do that, so this is a way you get additional revenue. You can get additional games on it, and it'll support it, and you can add storage or whatever. And I think that would be very, very cool. USB port. It's very easy to add storage. So I think that's one way they can do it. Same thing with the PS2. Same thing there. Basically, that PS2 tech is so old now, so cheap. They can get it so small. I think it'd be very cool. And then PS3 games are largely, most of those are readily available in PS Now, but I mean, I don't think we're going to do a PS3 Classic anytime soon. But I think it's one way to do it. That's cool. It's collectible. $70 for the 60 or $70 for the PlayStation 1, call it $80 PlayStation 2, and it could look like the original. But if they really want to reinvigorate like me, I don't want to play the old games the way they were. I want to play the old games in a new way, where they're cleaned up, they look beautiful, they look fresh on the eyes, they remind me of the way I thought they looked rather than the way they truly look today. And I want their controls and the cameras fixed. So really, I'm thinking remasters, even reimaginings, if you want to, like the Ratchet and Clank redo. That was awesome. So I would love to see them do that with their back catalog. Is really because they've already done that with some of their big titles like Shadow of the Colossus. They've done those. They've done some HD collections with Jak and Daxter, but I would like to see, a Jak and Daxter reimagining like Ratchet and Clank. That would be great. Bring up that gameplay to today's standards, add some new things, really, and then reinvigorate that series. Medieval's coming back. That's pretty cool too. So, from Sony, I think that's one thing they really need to go after. From a gaming catalog perspective, Sony's got most of the areas covered off. They've got their multiplayer shooter games pretty much covered with Destiny and Call of Duty and all of the third-party games. I just don't see them making another shooter that really would do much and move the bar unless they brought Resistance back. I think Resistance would be awesome. I loved Resistance 1. I loved Resistance 3. And I think that series is so very cool, and they could reimagine that as well, but maybe have it take place in a different time period, maybe even in the future. Maybe this is what happened as we take the fight to the aliens. I don't know, but that's just my thought as well. But I don't think Sony really has to do much in regards to new exclusive, because they've got they're firing on all cylinders with their exclusive at this point, and maybe they do have some planned, but I guess we will see with that. So those are my thoughts on the conferences. EA kicks it off on Saturday. Then we go through all the big conferences, and we end with the conferences with Nintendo. And then the show floor, you'll get more updates on the game. So, and like I said, we will have a podcast specific on that. But this is just my gaming update, my E3, what I want to see before it all starts. So, with that, I want to thank you all for joining us. Once again, we are the Secret Friends Unite podcast. We are part of the Secret Friends Unite Facebook group. You can reach out, you can join the group. You can reach out to us on Twitter at Secret Friends U, and reach us that way as well. So, without further exposition, I will tell you to be the hero, not the villain.